Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Extend. My name's Adam Ismail, and today we've got the full crew here, and we have an interesting topic to cover. And Brend is on top of it. Brend is managing this chaos that we're going to be talking about today, because it involves the PSP, and it involves all of the racing games on the PSP. And the PSP has lots of racing games.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And if you're trying to establish what PSP racing games are the best, you need an absolutely absurd scenario to inspire that sort of conversation. So in true Time Extend fashion, we've decided not to go down the route of asking, what are your favourite 5 PSP games? We've actually decided to do something a bit different. This is a good conversation starter that maybe you don't see coming. But effectively, as this episode title should prove, this is effectively Desert Island Memory Stick Pro Duo. Let me get you in the scene, guys. Let's set the scene for the discussion, because things are about to kick off, of course.
Hit me with the ambiance.
So, picture this. You've woke up on an abandoned island. You don't know where you are. There's a beautiful blue ocean. Some nice sand. And you're just like, how the fuck did I get here?
Last wave is drifting in the background.
Oh, setting the scene very nicely. You're completely stranded. We've set that up. There's nobody else there. You're no friends. Might be normal for some of you, I guess. You're just sitting there and you're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then you glance to your left and you see an emerald blue PSP 3000 sitting there in pristine condition on the sand. So you run over to it. Can't believe your eyes.
Can't believe one of these fell out of my pocket.
Yeah, I know. You see that the PSP has the infinite battery hack, so it can just go forever.
A classic.
Fantastic energy technology. Yeah, exactly. And also you've got the infinite terabyte Memory Stick Pro Duo inside it, so there's no
infinite terabyte. So it's infinite, but it's also limited.
Yeah, some capacity. It just depends what you're putting on there. You can probably fit about 50,000 docked ROMs of Pepsi Man on there, just for reference.
Or one install of Grand Theft Auto.
It's like a Memcard Pro. It's just a whole bunch of different partitions.
Yep, exactly. So you turn the console on.
It takes 9 years to index all the files from that memory card.
Yep, but you get here the lovely PSP chime turning on, so it brings back some good memories as you get ready to settle in for the rest of your life. And then you click on the memory card icon and 5 games load up. Oh my days, 5! 5!
Should be so lucky.
Driving/racing games. However, we need to decide what those 5 games are. So how we are going to tackle all the PSP racing games is effectively, prior to this episode, we thought about what games we would want to see on there. So what 5 driving/racing games would be on the PSP that would keep you company on your stranded island adventure. Guys, are you psyched? Setting the scene nicely here?
Absolutely.
Let's roll.
You've done a beautiful job. No one can see this, of course, but Andrew has been trying to play the PSP boot sound for the last 3 minutes and failing somehow. Straight into the microphone.
Oh man, I was trying to get UMD drive spin up noises, but instead it just started blasting the
little chirp from
Motorstorm Arctic Edge. Sorry.
Damn you, noise suppression.
Oh well. No, it's for the best.
Well, look. 20 years from now, we're going to be doing Desert Island PlayStation Portal. And that'll be a very short episode, because you can't do shit with a PlayStation Portal unless you have an internet connection. So.
Yeah, that one probably won't be as popular as this episode. I'm expecting 20 for this one. That one might get 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. We've set the scene.
Right.
We know what we're doing here. How we're going to go about this is effectively, I've taken all our lists and I've categorised them, or rather ordered them based on who chose the most games. What I haven't said is who chose what game. So that's where the conversations, I think, will start. Because either when somebody sees what's first and they see what numbers against it, they're going to be like, who didn't put that on their list? What the fuck? Or wait, you guys put that on your list? So we'll see where we go. And I'll of course say for audio listeners.
Yeah, are we starting with the most selected games or the fewest?
I was going to start with the most.
Okay, that
Would
works.
you guys prefer that, or at least?
We should
I
just
think that
start
makes
to
sense.
talk about
No,
that game
most
right
is
now, I
fine.
guess.
Get the
Yeah.
obvious ones out of the way, you know?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to make it clear for everyone listening. You know,
of course.
all 20 people.
So I'll also announce what game there is prior to everybody losing their shit for each of them, just so people know what invokes a reaction. But guys, ground rules set. We know the rules of the game. Any questions or points before we get started here?
Scream really loud at home so that we can hear you and try to judge kind of reaction up and down as we go, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So this was the most popular game. So the game that's going to appear first is the game that some number of us decided they would want to see on that memory stick. Boom. Ridge Racer 2 with 3 votes. Not 4.
Three?
Not 4.
Wow!
3.
Who was the holdout?
votes.
I know, yeah.
I know
I
who the
think
holdout
Brendan needs to
was.
explain himself.
Yeah.
Put money
So-
on Adam.
Yeah, I think like Adam likes being controversial, but he wouldn't do this. You know, it's funny because I've done a lot of talking already this episode, and right away I'm straight into defending myself for my first pick. So yes, Ridge Racer 2 isn't on that list. And this is like, it's honestly because, and I think I've said this in previous episodes, but for me, I think the ultimate game from that era of Ridge Racer was Ridge Racer 7. So my actual history with Ridge Racer 2 was after I'd played 7. I'll say that much. For my sins, I actually played 7 before 2. And then by the time I played 2, I'd felt as if I'd seen already a lot of what the game had to offer, and I didn't really find it that
Interesting.
engaging as a game.
Ah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I know the rules of the game we've set, it sort of doesn't take that sort of thing into consideration, but it's genuinely just because, like, we're talking about games to keep us busy for the rest of our lives here, and I didn't even get through Ridge Racer 2 when I did play it in my house.
Yeah, it's because it's
So-
an infinite video game.
Yeah, true. Actually, there is that as well. But yeah, I still think it's a good game. I think I think it is fun. I think it's great. I think the other games I've chosen are better though, especially for the scenario we're talking about. I love Ridge Racer. We all love Ridge Racer in this form. But I don't think for the amount of time we might be on that stranded island, it's the sort of gameplay loop that I would enjoy continuously for a long amount of time. So that's my opening gambit. I'm going to shut up for a little bit to let you guys start to talk as well now. But that's where it comes from.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I feel like your experience with like 7 versus PSP Ridge Racer is the opposite of what I had, where to me, I played the PSP games first. I mean, because like I had a PSP before I had a 360 and the PS3. So to me, when I played the console games, I was like, oh, they're just repeating shit with worse tracks. Like I was with the same car designs and worse tracks. And yeah, so for me, like the optimal Ridge Racer, I mean, 7 has the most content and everything, right? But like if I could experience that era of Ridge Racer, even though it's like definitely not my favorite era of Ridge Racer by far, it's like my least favorite, I would prefer it be on the PSP because that's just it just feels right to me. It also has all the old tracks, it has all the old songs, so it's got that going for it.
When this came out, I mean, I was thinking more of Ridge Racer 1 on the PSP because obviously it was a launch game. And when I had a PSP when they came out, I actually got a Japanese one, imported a Japanese one like lots of people did, because especially for the UK, the time release was insane. And having that in your hand was the most unbelievable thing you've ever seen in your life. Like playing this game, and it was the first 60 frames per second Ridge Racer as well. But they did the demo with Ridge Racer Type 4, obviously, but it was the first widescreen 60 Hz Ridge Racer of all these classic tracks. Like I said, it had tracks out of Rave Racer and stuff in it, and all these on all the mix and match stuff. It was just it was unbelievable, and it's like one of my favourite racing games of all time now in this little portable magical device that you couldn't believe, and it was incredible. It was just, yeah, and so I obviously, as you know, I had it on my list, Ridge Racer 2. And 1 and 2 were very similar, right? I think 2 just had a few more bits and pieces in it, a few tracks and cars, I think, right? But it was really cool. It's like the ultimate collection of the best version of Ridge Racer. And I guess 7, you're right, did that later on your TV at 1080p, 60 frames a second, which is incredible as well. Very impressive, but yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's kind of the opposite of where Brenda's coming from. I want just if I'm going to be stuck on a desert island with a PlayStation Portable, I want as much Ridge Racer as possible, even if it's not my, preferred era of Ridge Racer or, type of Ridge Racer. With all of the nitrous stuff and all that, like, whatever, it's fine. I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite. But man, yeah, this game is gigantic and will go on forever and ever and ever. And it's mostly, remixing a lot of just the same content in slightly different orders. It's like using, slightly different cars on the same tracks and going, reverse or whatever this time. Like it's doing the Ridge Racer thing of just reusing a lot of stuff that has existed for a long time. But there's just so much of it in there. And it's so good at being itself that I would not want to be without it if possible.
Yeah. This is a game that, at the end of the day, like, while it's not my favorite Ridge Racer, it fills me with, like, I guess when I play it, it just transports me back to 2005, being like, I was just playing, like, fucking F-Zero Maximum Velocity on my Game Boy Advance. Like, how does this game exist in the palm of my hands? And it's phenomenal. I mean, 60 frames per second, like Paul said, all of the PS1 content, it's just, like, it was magical at the time, and there's just, like, for whatever reason, like, there's some like small bit of that, like, still carries through for me. And so while I wouldn't say, like, it's the best game, at least, or my favorite game that, like, I picked here, I feel like I couldn't not give it a spot.
And it just doesn't exist now, right? There hasn't been a new Ridge Racer in a very, very long time, as we all know, which is a tragedy in itself, but it's just playing it again recently, and it was released on PS5, wasn't it, not too long ago, in fact, as a catalog game, which is really cool. And it doesn't look great upscaled like as it is, but it's like, it still plays so good and it
really
sounds so great. And
I think
you get used to the visuals, you get used to the upscaling after a while, but
yeah. There are some UI glitches in the emulation. It's not perfect, but generally speaking, I mean, like, I just leave that thing installed on my PS5, and when I'm, waiting for a buddy to wrap up a meeting so we can bang our heads against a, Elden Ring DLC boss for an hour and then go, we're old, I'm gonna go to bed now, bye. When I'm waiting for someone to get, online, I'll run through a couple of races and Ridge Racers 2 before that, just because it's there, and again, like, would I rather be pressing a button and playing Ridge Racer 7? Absolutely, but then I would have to go. Yeah, anyway, it's a whole thing. I'd have to turn on another box. I'd have to.
That is seconds away from death at any point.
Secret firmware on the retro tank that ignores the HDCP. I would have to. Yeah. Anyway.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning, though, R2 being on PS5 and PS4 now, because it might be, like, one of the only games we discussed today that is still purchasable today.
Yeah, I think it probably, at least for my list, it definitely is.
Yeah, unless we're counting, like, the the PS1 classics that are still technically barely available on, like, the PS3 store or whatever. This is kind of the only one of these that's, like, available in any official capacity currently, I think. Right? Like, I guess 6.
Like
6 is still.
Cab.
Well, yeah.
Right. Just to get released, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to buy old stuff, everything still exists, obviously, but yeah, I think in terms of other Ridge Racer games, it's basically this and 6, I think, because it's backwards compatible on Series X or whatever.
Oh, yeah, 6 is actually still purchasable. It's a good point. So
sadly not in the UK or Europe.
Really?
Oh,
yep.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It is. Well, it's okay, Paul. It sucks anyway.
It doesn't suck. It's just...
It's not 7.
Again, if 7 is right there. What do you...
I don't think 6 is digitally purchasable anymore anyway, is it? Because the Xbox 360 store is...
The store's
gone.
Yeah.
So you would have to
Can you not buy it on...
No, you can buy it on... I'm pretty Oh, actually, wait, you might be right.
I'm going to double check now.
I could have sworn...
You guys vamp for a second. I'll look this up.
Yeah, I could have sworn you could buy it on like the current store because it's one of those backwards compatible games. But maybe
yeah.
There are a lot of those, but
Yeah.
not all. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few that fell through the cracks with that.
I'll say something nice about Ridge Racer 6 though while we're just vamping. Way better soundtrack than 7. 7 soundtrack is really weak.
Ridge Racer 6 is $9.99 in United States legal tender
Okay.
on
Yeah.
Xbox.com.
Beautiful.
I really like the.
You can play it with a really shitty bilinear upscale on your Series X.
I like the hexagon style, the UI, the menu, the career that went across it.
Yeah.
Like that
Yes,
was really
yeah.
cool. That looked really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I was really glad to hear about when you guys were waxing lyrical about this game is it sort of captures why we feel so strongly about portable games a lot of the time. It's that kind of experience of this sort of game in a form factor you wouldn't expect to see it. I think like when you think about the games you feel most fondly about on portable consoles, it is often that experience of playing something on Christmas Day for the first time, or going at launch day, buying that sort of console and seeing that sort of game. And I guess that's why I'm a bit sad that I didn't really get that experience to kind of tie to Ridge Racer 2, because it would probably be on the list if it was, but
Yeah.
it's just coming from that perspective of the first experience I had of like drift-based Ridge Racer was 7, because I got my PSP a lot later down the line.
Yeah, I think that's another thing I just remembered. There's a bunch of us at work had. We all imported them at the same time, and we would play it at lunch, wirelessly, and Ridge Racer, like the ad hoc mode or whatever it was called.
Rules.
That's vibes.
Playing Synthetic Life, racing around and stuff, and it was just like, this is just the coolest thing ever. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Man.
Good times. Great launch game. Fantastic launch game.
Yeah, definitely one of the best ever. But Bren, there must have been another PSP game that made you, feel like the power of having something on the portable system. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be on this list.
Okay.
But-
it could be
I'm
on this
intrigued to
list.
see
Really
see
quick
what's
before we get
next.
into that, let me just add that if the GameStop I had purchased my used PSP from when I did had a copy of Ridge Racer in stock, I would probably be in a better place in life today. Instead, the game that I bought with my PSP was Need for Speed Most Wanted 510, and here we are.
Here we are.
That's the next game on the list. No.
And with also 3 votes.
Okay, let's go. Outrun 2006. Who didn't put it on the list?
Also 3. So first of all, we do have to point out that with Ridge Racer, that means that there's no game that we all have on our list.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
That's fun.
and Outrun, in the case of Outrun, Andrew put his hand up. So,
Ooh.
as
sorry.
the person who did not.
All right, I'll go on the defensive this time. I adore Outrun 2 in all of its forms. I now have Outrun 2 in all of its forms. I've gone off the deep end, boys. It's bad. It's a problem. However, Outrun 2006, I have talked about the PSP port on this very show in the past and my issues with the performance on that thing. And a big part of my experience with this episode was learning that all you have to do to overclock a PSP is press select on the XMB.
Yep.
I've been messing around with hacked PSPs since you could do that. Like, nearly 20 years now, and I've never...
Wait,
Look, I'm not a clever man, Adam.
I didn't know that either. So
Not an official firmware. That's just my ad.
Yeah.
it's not an official
yeah.
firmware,
Yeah.
but like I have like adrenaline on my Vita.
Absolutely,
Can I do that on the
100%.
Vita?
Probably.
Oh my god, I'm gonna do it right now.
And it runs much better. Still not perfect, but much better.
Right, so that's the thing, I spent a lot of time, I spent a few hours with Outrun 2006 yesterday, messing around with it with the overclocked CPU, and it's still not on my list, unfortunately, because I love it, it's great, it is almost that game. And when it is overclocked like that, you can see the frame rate's not, capped or anything. It's bouncing all over the place. And when it gets up towards 60, it looks amazing. It feels great. It's beautiful. And then a single other car is rendered on the road, and it just comes screeching to a halt. and it was giving me like motion sickness. The just bouncing up and down, back and forth was just, I can't. It's not. It was already in a state where I didn't feel like that game was. I don't want to call it unplayable because that's so melodramatic, but it was not something that runs well enough for me to feel like I'm okay playing it. And overclocking it did not fix that issue. Unfortunately, it just gave me little glimmers here and there of what could have been.
Yeah. It's a tricky one.
Not to say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to, like, not what could have been, like, oh, if Sumo had just optimized, but, like, that's not, you know what I'm talking about. They were trying to squish a Sega Chihiro game into a PlayStation Portable. Like, the fact that it runs at all is a miracle, and it's amazing, and I love it. I'm very glad that it exists. If it were in a top, like, 7, it would still be in there for me, but ultimately I decided to leave it out because it just bums me out a little bit.
Yeah, the fact that it runs on 60 on at 60 on PS2 is crazy.
Yeah,
PS2 is the best version as well for frame rates. It's absolutely rock solid. More so than the Xbox One, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I just had to have it on my list because it was. I think Outrun 2 is one of the best video games of all time. Period.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite video games of all time. So I couldn't be on a desert island and not be able to play that game again. So despite its issues, which it's completely true, right what you said, I had to put it on. Yeah.
Totally justifiable. Yeah. I wouldn't argue that at all.
Yeah. The performance thing is frustrating. I was playing the game a little bit today again, but it's also like it goes from like 60 to 30. It just does 60 or 30, right? It's not. Is it like constantly going up and down between those? Because it seemed to me like when it was running slower, it was like running slower consistently. So that at least made it a little bit better. But I don't know if that's just what my eyes picked up.
At least in the time that I spent with it last night, it felt like it was dropping down into 20s when there were things like when you're going through areas with a lot of like cloud cover or like snow and weather effects and stuff like that, or when they're adding the little like sub challenges, like collect all the hearts or like don't hit anything, pass as many cars as possible, and then they just like overload the road with a bunch of other stuff on the road. That's when it starts to drop down into like N64 territory.
Yeah, no, very very fair. I mean, I can deal with it. But it does, like, if I go from playing Outrun on, like, a console to Outrun on the PSP, then it stands out more. But it's just got, it's 2006, it's got everything. It's got all the songs, got all the cars. I think there's a way I can, like, connect it to the PS2 and get, like, special content that...
Right.
Which I think that content was just on the Xbox One by default. For the Sony games, they just Sega was just like, we're gonna make people have to spend double the amount of money.
Yeah, you could transfer your save for the miles, right? The Outrun miles and stuff as well. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Really interesting idea of that.
I just think like 2006 for me is the perfect example of taking a game that is very much built around a kind of coin-op type experience and expanding it to the point that it sits pretty and nice as a full-fledged like retail title.
Yeah.
And regardless of the platform, that still stands. Obviously the performance isn't fantastic by any means, and that is a bit of a disappointment, but it is just so funny that Sumo had to squish this down into the PSP, and squish they did. They didn't really skimp on anything really, which it still kind of amazes me to this day just how much content and stuff there is in that game. Like if we talk about Ridge Racer 2, like you were saying, Andrew, it kind of shuffles things around to create loads of events, and it's kind of fairly repetitive. Like Sumo would do a really good job in Outrun 2006 and keeping the challenges and such fresh, which is really
they put
impressive.
The whole damn video game in there, man.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Admirable.
It's such an impressive title, and yeah, it's for me when you're stranded at a beach looking at the blue ocean and the clear sky. I want that on my fucking PSP as well. that's why Outrun 2006 is right in there. Cheers.
Yeah, my only issue with 2006 is that it doesn't have the Scud Race and Daytona 2 tracks, and That's why the original Xbox release of Outrun 2 is always going to be my favorite. Cause,
Did they stick those in SP? I don't remember. Maybe not.
The PS2, the Japanese one?
Yeah, I haven't fired it up in a bit.
Yeah, I've never played that game, but they took them out of 2006, and that was a shame. But
that was cool. That was a really cool secret that they put in the game. Really,
it was
really,
awesome.
really cool.
I knew about that. I remember I knew about that before the game came out. I don't know how I found out. I was like 11 or something.
You just knew in your heart.
Yeah, I was like, I need this.
I think the guy leaked it on like NTSC UK, which is an old import of gaming forum. But obviously, most people use that forum from the UK because they obviously used to import a lot of stuff. And the guy worked on that game, and I seem to remember him leaking that foolishly before the game came out. So maybe that was where, and then it spread everywhere. Then after that, every website picked it up.
Sometimes leaks sell video games, you know?
Yeah.
I think one of the things nobody really talks about in 2006 enough, I would say, is the soundtrack, and I don't mean the main Outrun songs, like I mean like
Risky
all the
Ride, bro.
Amazing.
And,
yeah, exactly. Like all of those tracks that you unlock later in the Outrun Miles kind of spending sprees are just absolutely banging.
Yeah.
But obviously most people stick to your usual Splash Wave and Magical Sound Shower and stuff. But like, there is so many good tracks in the Outrun series, and I feel as if when people talk about how good Outrun's music is, they basically stop at those original tracks, and it just does the others a disservice.
Yeah, people gotta check out those new M2 tracks from the 3DS port.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Sega Ages release.
Really good.
Or was that the Switch port that they did that for?
Both.
Whatever.
It was the 3DS.
3DS and the Switch one had some stuff in that as well, yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are fantastic releases anyway. But Outrun 2006, even for the issues that I have or whatever on PSP, I think it's just a fantastic thing. And I think if you are a racing games person in possession of a PlayStation Portable or a way to play those games, I think it's absolutely worth having, or at least checking out and spending some time with.
Absolutely. Before we maybe think about other games, first song that comes into your mind, your favourite Outrun track across the entire series. Adam, start with you.
Brush the difficulty.
Nice, right away.
It's the best.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Ooh, he's thinking.
I'm flipping a coin in my head. Come back to me in a sec. Hold on.
Paul.
Risky Ride.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, Risky Ride's really good.
Andrew.
Passing Breeze, I guess.
Very nice. I'm a keep your heart type of guy.
Oh, Keep Your Heart's cool, yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. All bangers.
Love it, man. Love it. So many bangers. Anything else for Outrun 2006?
No, it just mentioning Switch there reminded me of that Virtua Racing port, which was incredible. Not to do with today's conversation, but that was. And how did that not get ported to PS5 and Xbox? I don't understand. Right. Crazy.
That's a good question.
Amazing.
Right then.
All right, Brendan.
3.
Rip that band-aid off.
3. MotorStorm Arctic Edge.
Interesting. It's good to see that one on the list high.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Non-believer, reveal yourself.
I
mean,
again, if we were doing a top 6 or 7, this is in there.
Yeah.
Here's my loose UMD because the case was lost on a road trip long ago. Here's my PS2 copy to feel slightly better about that.
Try to validate your
anyway.
choice.
nice.
I brought my props.
Well, now you have the unenviable task of saying to Paul right here why you don't like the video game he made.
I love the video game you made. There are exactly 5 others that I would have personally brought on a a shipwreck vacation, if I had planned ahead for such a thing, just due to my personal history with them, I suppose. Whereas I didn't actually pick up a copy of Arctic Edge until like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Something like that.
Yeah, this
good as hell though. Holy crap!
This was one I got. I remember I briefly had a PSP Go because even though it was a worse system in like a million ways, I just liked how small it was.
I love it.
Andrew still
So
got
good.
one. God damn it! Every single freaking PSP I got rid of over my life. Still paying for it.
You could have a little bouncy clock here on your desk.
I
man.
know.
What are you doing?
I love that. I love that they're like, oh, how are we gonna come at the iPod? We'll give you a analog clock. There we go. But no, this game is just, oh my god. This game to me is like the most technically impressive PSP game. I was reading some interviews that I guess the director gave at the time, and apparently that the game was like, PSP was the lead platform, right? So it's like, and you can tell because it just seems like it was built for that system. I mean, it pushes it in a way that, like, it's one of those games that pushes it in a way that you just don't think is possible, and also like is able to convey the entire just feeling and experience of MotorStorm on the PSP. And I actually think, because as I was playing it, I was thinking about how years ago, Brand, we were talking about MotorStorm just in general, and you were saying, I think you were saying that like you never really got on with the franchise, or something about the car handling or something like that. But this game, I think,
the Evolution development.
Right. So the handling is really better on Arctic Edge. It's really impressive that like you have that little analog nub, and yet the game just plays better. Just phenomenal.
This is the one you asked. What game for me really made me go, how is this happening on the PSP? MotorStorm Arctic Edge. Holy crap. It's just like, I just remember being absolutely blown away the first time I played it, just because of how impressive it looks. Right, obviously you've got that sort of MotorStorm gameplay which is fairly bombastic in and of itself, but even just like obviously the kind of tundra theming of the game itself, and the kind of the weather effects and stuff on a portable still runs better than a lot of Switch games today, to be honest. And the gameplay is just so fluid. I was stuck between two Big Ben games in this case on the PSP. This one won it out. I'm not sure if that one will appear. For me, it's just this is, for me, if I'm thinking about what the PSP was actually capable of without any Kazunori Yamauchi trickery. This is prime time. And I was refreshing myself on the soundtrack for it as well, because I always remember, even as soon as you put the UMD in and you're hovering over the icon for the game, is it Bullet for My Valentine that plays, or I can't remember what.
I don't know. It happened to be literally 30 minutes ago on this recording, and it was so loud that I think I died for a second.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I remember putting the UMD in. It was like when Bart Simpson plays Bone Storm for the first time. I was just like,
just enter my name.
Just incredible game, incredible soundtrack. Definitely showed like those handheld experiences can be representative of their counterparts, and that, Paul, that makes it 2 for 2 with you when I talk about Sega Rally Revo on the PS3, and then it is, and then talk about MotorStorm on the PSP, just the defining experiences on those consoles. Because that's how I had put this, which is so weird because I don't like MotorStorm. So, it's a banger, certified banger. This is what people think Pacific Rift is for the PS3. This is the real
kind of what I kind of wish Pacific Rift was.
I like Pacific Rift.
I do too. Yeah. I don't dislike any of the MotorStorm games, but also like I'm at a place now where if I'm gonna play any of the PS3 games, it's like maybe just emulate them at this point. But Arctic Edge, man,
so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
If you want to know how good Arctic Edge is, just last thing I'll say. Now shut up. Look at how Split Second looks on the PSP. And compare what you guys achieved for Arctic Edge. And for me, that's just like,
it looks all right.
No, it does. It looks fine, but it's just like.
But also,
Arctic Edge is just like, it feels like a step above. Like, I think that's why it's so good.
Yeah,
I love this one.
Yeah, it was. I had to have it on the list mainly, obviously, for the reasons you've all said, and obviously because I was privileged enough to work on that title, so it was a little bit of history for me. There's another game on this list, which I'm sure we'll come to, which also was a game I was lucky enough to work on. So yeah, it was cool, and it was just how it was the MotorStorm vibe. Everything was there, wasn't it? The music, the feeling, the close racing, and all the routes and the surface types and all that sort of really balanced gameplay. It was all there, and it was amazing. And when I was playing it the other day, like the career mode where you spiral up, going slowly, getting higher and higher up the mountain. It's like the whole game is there. It's an entire game, and it had a photo mode in it. I remember it has with secrets and stuff in it, everything, and it's cool. It's just
yeah, just really, really executed like the highest level. Does anyone have any memories? Like anybody plays on PS2? Because I'm curious about that one. I never have.
I mean, again, I probably fired up this copy a long time ago, but it's been a minute.
I didn't know that you had it. I didn't see it before. You just brandished it.
Oh yeah, I saw that up a second ago with my UMD. Guys, listen. Okay, full disclosure. The real reason that I did not put this on my list is because I was forming this list by looking at the spines on the shelf of my PSP games, and this not having a case meant that I forgot about it until about an hour ago. But I'm just sitting here quietly playing it now while we're talking.
Amazing.
And
doing your homework on the bus.
Kick something else off.
Fucking awesome. It's got
this light flares and stuff.
Yeah.
So it could be the 4. This could be the 4 then, technically. Andrew, if you're willing to boot something else off, this could be our unanimous Desert Island game.
It could
Just
be.
throw it out there.
Yeah.
You could cause landslides, avalanches from boosting at the wrong point, and all sorts of stuff, man.
Look at the soundtrack.
Right.
It's got electioneering.
Man, that music, I heard that music.
Great soundtrack.
Much, obviously,
Yeah.
all day, every day, all going.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure. Man, yeah, okay, yeah, no, there is something else that when we get there, I'll tell you what I kicked off, I guess. But I think this probably, now that these memories are flooding back, I think
we have it.
I think I have to make a choice here.
That's it, the unanimous game.
I tried to justify it at first. I was like, well, if I pick something else, then that I don't expect us to have talked about already, then maybe we can have a more interesting discussion or whatever. But then I played a lap of Arctic Edge, and I was like, man, I can't deny this thing.
I think like this one came up, we all got like a smile on our face. Obviously, Paul, you worked on it, so that's what you'll be thinking of. But like, it's so good, man. So good.
They should bring it back.
Yeah, they should.
Next game.
Let's do it. Gran Turismo PSP, 2 votes.
Dividing the group.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 1.
Yeah,
Who
and
didn't put it?
I was the other. Yeah. Yeah.
I put it on mine.
It was kind of similar in a way that Ridge Racer is. It was that collection of so many cars and all the tracks. And it felt like Gran Turismo. It had a non-existent career mode, but kind of also perfect for PSP handheld, where you just go car, track, AI, done, in. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I played the shit out of that game.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. It was just like this feels like Gran Turismo, and it looks like it. And it ran at 60. Had the letterboxing, didn't it? That effect and stuff. But it was so cool. It was just like this is hasn't got a GT career mode, but I think what it had was great. I loved it, and it still plays great now. It's Gran Turismo's evolved a lot since then with physics simulation and stuff, but it still feels really good, and it feels like Gran Turismo, which is the kind of the most important part, right?
Yeah. For me, I agree with all of that, but the reason it is on this list is with all of that great stuff you've described, what exactly am I supposed to do in this game? Like, there isn't a career, there is the driving school, but don't get me wrong, sandbox games now especially are super popular, and I think GT PSP got a lot of shit at the time for not having a traditional career mode, which I didn't mind at the time, and I think as a pick up and play, do a race, turn it off type thing, it'd be absolutely fine, but that wasn't the brief here. The brief here was, we're stuck on a desert island, what games are going to hold my interest, and I think that's where GT PSP falls flat, because aside from S ranking all of the tracks and stuff for zero reward, aside from earning more cash and hoping cars appear in the rotating FOMO market, there's just a little bit of sauce missing there. But I still absolutely love this game. It's still really good. I love doing ad hoc party races via the PS3. when that app came out on the console, and that was so much fun. But yeah, I just don't think I would have it on that top 5. It misses out just.
Wait, I thought you did. So Andrew did?
I did.
I misunderstood.
Happy to explain that because I think it might actually need some justification a little bit. It's weird because, like, was this the one that Kaz was trying to call Gran Turismo for boys or whatever?
No,
that's a different one.
Or is that something else?
That's kind of.
I thought that was something else.
That's kind of
on YouTube.
That's kind of what this became. So he never outright said that, but I think he did. I think in an interview a lot later, he was like GT PSP was basically GT for boys. I just didn't call it that.
Right.
Because that would be really, really weird.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like looking at it now in its like historical context, launching in 2009 alongside the PSP Go or whatever. It's in that era where the PSP's main use case was as a Monster Hunter machine for Japanese train commuters. So that's where you start to see a lot of PSP games start to move into that Monster Hunter-y direction of like snackable missions or whatever. And that kind of being the overall sort of pacing and structure of a lot of PSP games that are kind of just taken from that style of game and applying that sensibility to other genres and stuff, just to make something that makes sense to play while you are passively commuting or whatever in a potentially social environment. But that also means, it doesn't have a proper career mode. You can't even there's no GT Auto. You can't go tune and upgrade your cars. You can't do almost anything with them. It's alarmingly threadbare if you're used to console Gran Turismo. But for me, it was the PSP being my first PlayStation system was my introduction to a lot of different. Okay, I just wrapped up 100%ing Astrobot last night. And a lot of the cameos in there are things that I became familiar with first on PSP. I had played other Gran Turismos and Ape Escapes, etc., but this was the first one that I owned and was a thing that I could spend a lot of time with. So I was following, not development or whatever, but I was waiting for this game for years. There were pictures in Game Informer and stuff early on that were just and we got this. We saw this preview where Gran Turismo for PSP, you can use it as a rear view mirror for GT5 on your PS3. Just set your PSP on top of your television, and it's just all this wild stuff. And I was just that was peak just Sony going absolutely bonkers with weird stuff like that. That was their Walkman of the 21st century era a little bit, and so I was just very excited to have an experience with Gran Turismo that I could own, I guess. Not own exchange money for, but own in a personal sense, right? And I wish it was a much meatier game for sure. Yeah. But the performance is incredible. I think it looks really well. All the baked lighting and stuff is really tastefully relaxed and kind of flat a little bit in the way that even I think it's really obvious in GT 4 and 7. I would say they both have that very realistic, muted kind of color palettes and stuff that are a little bit more akin to real life than say Forza's kind of more exaggerated, sunsets and stuff like that. It looks and plays great. There's a ton of content in there, and I wish it was organized very differently. I wish there were a lot of other things that you could be doing in that game, but I did spend a lot of time with it in my teen years because this came out the year that I got my driver's license. So the reason that this is on this list for me now is because it may not be the Gran Turismo single player career mode that I want, but it is, like Paul said, still a really good the actual act of playing that game is still really, really fun, I think. Just taking cars around tracks and stuff. Like, yes, the actual progression might not be there, but the moment-to-moment is still excellent. I think they made a very, very well-playing video game. And the purpose that this serves for me on a desert island where I am never, ever getting home is within seconds, I can boot this thing up and be in the Seattle track driving the car that I was driving in 2009. Well, it's a coupe version. I did a sedan. There's an 01 Acura CL in there. I had a TL. That was my first car. And by I mean my parents until I destroyed it. But anyway, it's just like, yes, I am now digitally driving a low poly version of a car around a weird racetrack version of a city. And I was driving that real car in the real city at the time. And that's just weirdly novel to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Gran Turismo, baby. That's why we love it.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
I commend them on getting, the Gran Turismo physics, the Gran Turismo 60 frames per second, all of that onto a PSP. I think also it benefits from the fact that its physics are, if I recall correctly, kind of like but they're more along the lines of GT5's physics than they are GT4's, because they were in development at the same time. So it even feels better from like a handling and physics perspective to me than GT4. But yeah, I don't know, man. This was a period of Polyphony just having the worst priorities. Just having the absolute most dogshit priorities.
Yeah.
And the reason why I don't love this game is the same reason why I don't love GT5 or really GT6. It's just, you have the bones of something fantastic, and then you just don't go like it. I don't know if you'd say the extra mile, because it shouldn't be the extra mile, just have a career mode. Like, it didn't even have to be the longest in the world. They could have...
The extra mile is moon landers and like go-karts and
literally.
stuff. Wow. GT6 is the extra mile for sure. All of the other weird stuff in that game.
Yeah, but if they just, like... Honestly, I would have much preferred this game had a car list of, like, 200 and was more like a GT prologue type experience. That would have made it perfect.
Yeah.
Instead, they just threw everything that was in GT4 into this game, but didn't build the construction, everything around it to just make it make sense and make it be something that was going to like keep me coming back. So like once I did, the glorified license test that basically formed the backbone of the game's career, once I heard Jay Leno's voice like 18 billion times. Yeah, it was that was it. That was it. And then
You heard about this thing?
after that, you have to like
It's called the Nürburgring.
after that, you have to like just wait for those cars to trickle in the dealership. And honestly, if there's any benefit to playing this game now, it's that we now know about that code that we didn't know about before, where that GT4 also has, where you can just unlock all the cars.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And all the money. Basically infinite money, all the cars, all the colours, right? Everything.
Yep,
crazy.
everything.
Nice.
So
Wild.
Just on the Jay Leno point, in the US version, Jay Leno, what a fucking conversation starter. On the US version of the game, he does does he do the preamble before events as well?
he does everything.
Right. In the UK version, I don't know if you remember this, Paul. It's a woman who speaks. I don't know who it is and does the preamble, but they kept Jay Leno just saying 3, 2, 1, start in the game.
Yeah, that's weird.
So, yeah, it's really odd. Honestly, I'm absolutely certain that that's the case. If you look up the UK version of the game, you'll hear it. But
Is
it's
it Carol Vorderman?
No, it's not.
Of Carol Vorderman Sudoku?
It's I can't think of a name.
They should have gotten like, I don't know, like a
Judi
Vicky
Dench.
Butler Henderson or something like that. Like that would have made more sense if they got like, someone from Fifth Gear. I don't know.
Because I remember one of the early episodes when we were talking about GTPSP, Adam. I made a joke about the fact that they put Jay Leno in to say like 4 things, and then you took that and talked about like the preamble stuff he says, and I just remember being like, wait, what?
That's weird.
And it just like shook my world. And then I looked up the US version of the game on YouTube, and I was like, wow, okay, well, it sort of makes sense now why they go to the hassle of getting him, because as far as I was concerned, they literally hired Jay Leno to say 3, 2, 1, start.
Yeah. The show's been on so long with the episodes so far between that I completely forgot that we had that conversation.
Yeah, I think that was the one where we had Jordan from GT Planet on. I think that might have been when we were discussing
right. Jay Leno sucks, by the way. Anyway, he's awful.
Yes. I don't know if he's like actually a bad person. I just think he's annoying.
I mean, he fucked over Conan. That's all it takes for me.
I mean, that was a whole thing. But anyway.
And he's not fun. And he's not funny.
You got some cool cars.
We cannot relive.
Yes, he
tank
does
car.
own the McLaren F1. That is true.
Okay, so next game on the list. I feel like I should caveat what's about to happen because I think two people are going to be fucking confused. So, one thing we talked about in a way on the PSP is that so many games are incremental in nature, right? There's like two versions of a game, like Wipeout, Ridge Racer, that sort of thing. It split the votes effectively because some people chose one version, some people chose the other.
Okay.
Figured this was coming.
So, the fifth game that actually makes up our homogenous time extend blob top 5 is Street Supremacy.
Okay.
Yes! So, of course, me and Andrew both chose Street Supremacy against all odds.
Hell yeah.
Do either of you know what Street Supremacy is?
Well,
I can see
yeah,
Paul
but
Googling.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm understanding what you're saying about because there's another game that I think I get what you're saying, but was there another?
Yeah, that's what I
There-
grabbed first, and then
Was
There's
there another,
there's another scenario like this. I'm not going to ruin what it is
right,
until
right,
we
right.
get
But,
there,
but was
yeah.
there another TXR on PSP?
well, there
No,
was
I'm saying that basically, and within our list, some people chose one game from a series that we've not talked about yet, and some choose the other.
Yes.
And that happened twice, so
Okay.
there could have been a theoretical scenario where that could have been 2 votes, if you know what I mean. Like 2 people could have chosen a
Yeah. I don't
game, that's all.
think I'm following, but that's okay.
You'll see when we get there. You'll see when we get there. But yeah, Street Supremacy is the last game on the list. Tokyo Extreme Racer is the GOAT. I won't take any clarifications from there. It's got to be there.
It's very good. I had not played this game at all until a couple months ago when we first talked about doing this episode, and I thought it was great. Well, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. It wasn't my, again, this might have been a case where if I had grown up like, wow, I get TXR on my PSP or Vita, I would have been blown away. But it seemed fine, not my favorite handling in the series, not my favorite selection of like cars and things like that, but okay. Solid.
My copy's still sealed. I don't. I just downloaded an ISO. I don't. But there is a Wonka Midnight portable as well.
Okay.
That does actually have the like open world driving around thing that you expect from Shitoku Battle, but it has a really weird handling model that I do not like very much at all. So I left it off. But
Yeah.
the
handling model in this game isn't amazing, but it's playable.
No.
It works.
Yeah.
it's close enough to
Yeah.
like I don't know, like TXR2 on Dreamcast or something like that.
Mhm.
It's
My approach to this was that the conditions of our experiment was it had to be 5 driving/racing games, which means that the gameplay loops are going to be very similar. By including Street Supremacy, it sort of leans into the fact that there's sort of a fighting game on
you
this
sneak a
list
fighting
now.
game in there. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is just to counteract the boredom potentially of playing very similar games.
Nice.
So
It's just such a compelling loop. This was another game that I was playing last night that I ended up playing the most of last night because I just couldn't put it back down. I just got really into, I mean, it's the way that it always goes with Shitoku Battle. It's like you find some racer with some ridiculous name and you develop a passionate hatred for that person as you, race them again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it's got that kind of like Nobunaga's Ambition kind of like overworld map thing with different gangs and teams taking over different parts of Tokyo and stuff like that. It's just it's fun as hell, man. I wish it did have a whole like just drive around the big open loop and flash your headlights at people and stuff. But there's also something very satisfying about just like get into a duel and then get out.
Yeah.
And the way that you have to like prepare in advance to like go out for the night, effectively, and
cool. Like
whatever happens, and your team might try to start a drag race battle with, an adjacent team or whatever, and you might have already burned your nitrous for the night in a previous race, and now you're screwed, and you just have to watch the rest of your team deal with these head-to-heads back and forth. But I don't know. The loop of almost beating someone and having that moment where you're like, man, I could either try to bump them into traffic and cheat my way to the end of this, or I could come back in the next day after having upgraded my exhaust and transmission and stuff and see if I can get ahead of them a little faster earlier on, and just making those kind of like slight tweaks and stuff to your vehicle as you go in these chunks of time that you have to like dedicate to, not necessarily knowing what you might be running into along the way. I don't know. I find this to be a very, very just fun and enjoyable portable version of the whole Shitoku Battle formula. And again, it might not be the best one of those games, but it is portable, and I do sure like it a whole hell of a lot.
I do like the 5v5 kind of team battle scenario you get into this game, where it's like, you go up against a rival crew, and basically when one of your drivers loses, they're effectively out. So it's just like you try to beat the other team without going through all of your 5 drivers. And it's good. I do think that even though this game was not on my list, I do like it. And this whole I linked you guys to a review from IGN when the game came out. Like, this game was hated. This game was reviled.
Yeah, right. Alex Navarro review, right? Mm-hmm.
We need justice for street supremacy, which feels like something that they probably say in the game.
Definitely. Yeah, it was absolutely despised. I remember that really well. It meant that its pre-owned price absolutely plummeted very quickly, so it was good in that way. I got it from £4 from exactly £4 from Game Station at the time, so it worked out well that everybody else doesn't have good taste in games.
It's also just at least the way that it was released in the streets, as street supremacy with Konami branding on it and nothing else. Strange. There's no reference to any other name that series is released under out here, because obviously there's TXR, but then there's Import Tuner Challenge and all the other ways that it's been. The thing that happens to racing games as they cross international territories and stuff, where they just get different names and IPs and stuff thrown on them or whatever. I could totally see this looking like a really generic, low budget, weird little knockoff racing game that Konami just pooped out overnight. If you're not familiar with any of this, the context around this franchise or whatever before, or even if you are and just don't like the stuff that's missing from it, I get it, but it's just so damn fun for me that I kind of don't care that much. I don't know.
They need to bring the 5v5 mode back for the new one, for online play.
Yeah.
That would be
a good idea. Teaser last night. It's a 50-second video that's just a bunch of neon lights looping around the skyline.
It's just basically saying it exists.
We're still here.
Hey, today
that 5v5.
They should have car today. They shouldn't. Scotland. I think.
Today they revealed. We all were unsure whether or not the R34 GTR was going to be in TXR, but by God.
Yep. It's cool.
Happy to report.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to reveal the next two at the same time, because we are now into the single vote ones, and Adam, this will explain the terribly explained thing I tried to explain when I was explaining it before we talked about street supremacy. Okay. Wipeout Pure and Wipeout Pulse.
So this is what I thought you meant, but then you started talking about street supremacy, and I was like, I don't think that applies to street supremacy.
I just meant that street supremacy got into that 5th spot purely because there's some cannibalization going on here.
Now I got it.
Yep. One vote each. Following the trend of how Wipeout sold when it came out.
All 2 copies. Who went Pure then?
I went pure.
Yeah.
And he's got receipts to back it up. Why pure?
Because pure, you could probably make a very strong case for Pulse being a better video game. But Wipeout Pure is one of those like touch points for me of like, oh, this changed the direction of my actual life. Getting Wipeout Pure along, I got that like a few days after Need for Speed Most Wanted 5.10, and I've talked about this before, but Wipeout Pure was my A, it was my first Wipeout game, and then B, it was also like going through and seeing a game with so much just cool shit in it, just even in the menus and UI and stuff like that, that was my first time being like, oh, that's a thing you can do. Someone did this. And set me down this dark road, this career path. So, I don't know. Maybe I should be cursing Wipeout Pure for doing that to me, but it just was such a foundational part of my life in general in terms of showing me ways to fuse all of my various aesthetic interests in ways that I did not know could be done. So shout out to John Meshing for all of his amazing design work on that. But yeah, it's got a terrifying amount of DLC that came out for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's wild. But yeah, again, Pulse is probably the better pick, but just Pure is so like meaningful for me personally that I couldn't be stranded on a desert island without Wipeout Pure. I couldn't do it. I'd throw myself over onto the rocks off the edge.
So this game broke my heart recently because I was like, when we figured out that we were going to do this, I was like, Wipeout Pure is going to be one of my 5. It just is. I got Wipeout Pure.
I guess it is Wipeout 5.
Ridge Racer. Yeah, I guess so. I got those 2 games, so this and Ridge Racer, with my PSP. Now, the difference is I never really played a Wipeout game before Pure. This was the first. I think I have very faint memories of playing 3, but when I was a very small child, but I didn't. Nothing really stuck with me. So like Pure was really it. And although it didn't, completely change my life in quite the way it changed Andrew's, it did definitely stick with me that like, holy shit, this game is cool. I think though, like going back and playing it now, I almost feel like this actually might be the Outrun 2006 problem for me, because the performance of this game, if you're used to playing Wipeout HD and Wipeout Omega Collection and even 2048, it's like you go back and you're like, wow, can the screen tearing stop for like 3 seconds? Like it's really rough. And that's a shame because like, yeah, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a vibe standpoint, from a design, like, yeah, the game is flawless.
Have you heard the good news about overclocking the CPU on your PlayStation Portable?
Yeah, so I guess I'll have to try that now because I didn't even know I could do that on my Vita, but it's got all that going for it, and I so much more prefer like this era of like this and 3 are almost kind of like a tandem for me when I think about like eras or manifestations of like the Wipeout aesthetic.
Is that just because Fusion is such a stark dividing line between them?
The Fusion doesn't count.
Okay, fair enough.
I just generally just don't ever.
The actual Wipeout 4 is Quantum Redshift, but that's a discussion for a different episode.
Yeah. But
I have receipts.
God damn it! What was I gonna say, Andrew? Yeah. So Pulse, I don't like Pulse and everything that came after it. They're good games, but just from a design standpoint, I don't think they're as pretty. I don't like what they're going for there. It seems like then they kind of went straight even further from the Designers Republic's or the foundation of everything. So while I like those games a lot to play, I don't like them as much to look at. So like, that's why I guess Pure kind of had this space in my head. It's just like, oh, I'm going to go back to that. It's going to be amazing. And I just didn't enjoy the physicality of it as much as I thought I would. So.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That makes sense. I think like, I chose Pulse, by the way. Pulse was my pick because like we've said, that I think Pulse is the better game. and I think it's really interesting because, like, aesthetically, obviously, as you say, Dan, like, once you get to Pulse, that kind of lineage sort of fades away. But one of the weird trends with Studio Liverpool at the time was like...
It's the same designer.
Is it actually the same designer?
Yeah, John Mashin did both Pure and Pulse.
I did not know that. So that actually maybe ties into what I was going to say, because I was going to say basically that it felt like between Pure, Pulse, HD, Fury, it was like a utopian, dystopian type like design theme like in those games, because if you can consider the use of like light colours and kind of bright popping stuff for Pure and HD compared to Pulse and Fury, I mean, fucking clues in the name in that one, I guess. It's like, yeah, like you see that more kind of aggressive undertone of like what people pretend Wipeout's lore is in depth enough to discuss in terms of like anti-gravity racing isn't all cookies and rainbows and stuff. Like, and I feel as if like the design architecture of Pulse is a really nice kind of gritty feel whilst still being like a better playing, better running game in my opinion. And then also, because we're on a deserted island and also it's the year 2024, we wouldn't be able to make use of this feature. But I thought it was really cool in Pulse that you could create liveries and stuff. That was like, oh, I wish that had fucking ended up in the PS3. It was, such a cool idea. It's a shame that we never got anything like that on HD or Fury.
I really like that Pulse has that main menu thing that's just like wipeoutgame.com or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, just open this up in the PSP's web browser and download a bunch of free new content.
Yeah. So cool.
Again, obviously not useful now, but just as an idea for the time, I think is extremely cool.
Yeah, I think that with all the DLC for Pure, Pulse having those features, and then Fury being a really good example of how an expansion could look in that particular time period. Like Studio Liverpool were doing some cool stuff on the expansion front and what they were going for there. But those are all sort of external factors, I guess. But yeah, Pulse just kind of resonated with me a bit more. Soundtrack and Pulse I find a bit better than Pure as well. They're largely comparable, but I feel as if Pulse sort of has the edge.
Did Pulse have basically the same soundtrack as HD? Because I vaguely... Yeah.
Noisy, DJ Fresh. Like, that was kind of the general vibe of those games.
Is that Invaders Must Die remix?
Yeah.
Whatever it's worth, really quick, just so I can design nerd for a second. John Mashin also did the branding work for Motorstorms, Apocalypse, and RC, as well as Drive Club and Onrush.
I can see getting the Drive Club in
Pure and Pulse.
Yeah, I think about it.
How fast do you want to go?
The eternal question. Any closing comments on Wipeout? Paul, you've been quiet on this one.
No, Wipeout would. I like Wipeout. I want to like Wipeout more than I do like Wipeout in overall as a game. I do. It's cool. I had it in PlayStation 1, played the original game, and played all of them. The one on PS3 was amazing, and the Omega Collection. Oh God, that's PS4, right? That was really cool. But interesting topic, Wipeout. But they're really, really cool games. They're really cool. But I've never been massive fan of the handling of them and how they play. But that's it. Yeah.
Are you more of an F-Zero fan, or
probably more maybe more F-Zero. Maybe more F-Zero, but yeah, that's it's an interesting one for sure. But cool. I can't remember, was Pure the one that came out first on PSP?
Yep. Yeah. Pure was a launch title.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Pulse, I feel like I found myself steering almost exclusively with the air brakes, unless it's a really sharp turn. For whatever reason, like just the way that it just kind of slides around, like I don't know, there's something to it.
It's so far from the actual gameplay philosophy of the original Wipeouts at that point. It's very air brake heavy. I think like HD Fury is the exact same. Feels like the Formula 1 era, I guess, of like those anti-grav racers.
A little bit, yeah.
Point and shoot type.
Yes. This is another PSP game with a PS2 port. However, this one is PAL only, and under no circumstances should you seek this one out.
I didn't realize it was PAL only. Oh boy.
It is. It is also disastrous. Don't play it. I'm sorry.
Amazing.
It should be cool. Unfortunately,
Arctic Edge. Well, you have it on PS2, so it came out here. I was gonna ask if that was a similar situation because these games tend to go. This and Pulse tend to go hand in hand to me because they were PS2 and PSP.
Yeah.
At a time when, I don't know, Sony just wasn't interested in selling PS3s, I guess. So they wouldn't get there until 2010.
Yeah, like Arctic Edge was also 09, so it's definitely a later PS2 release.
Yeah, it was.
It was. There's no memory card slot in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't developed by. The port wasn't done by Big. It was done by
Virtual.
Big.
Can't remember.
I said Big Ben earlier.
I can't remember. Yeah, Big Ben. Yeah, I can't remember who the developer was.
Big did a Pursuit Force.
That's right, Pursuit Force and the sequel, Extreme Justice. Yeah.
Yes.
Extreme Justice.
Pursuit Force is not a racing. It's tricky. That's not a racing game, strictly, is it? So it's yeah.
Or is it? We'll get there. Anyway.
Well.
Okay, we ready to move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
So we're on to the one votes for this one. So one person voted for this game. There is no other games in this series on PSP. Sega Rally Revo. Who was that?
So earlier I said
Oh no!
I'm pulling something off for MotorStorm.
Yeah. All right.
Sega Rally Revo is a game that maybe jumped the most in my estimation after overclocking the CPU, just because it did become an extremely consistent experience performance-wise. But like that game was already good, and
that's good.
I liked it even more after doing that. And I don't know, man. I like Sega Rally Revo a lot in all of its forms, and this is one of them. I don't have a lot else to say. Just like, damn, dude, you ever play Sega Rally Revo? That's a good video game.
This was I was really impressed by like how, I mean, obviously developed specifically for the PSP by Bugbear, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And it's really like it definitely feels like in terms of production values, in terms of like the, you know, desire to make a complete experience, it wasn't like, you know, anything was cut down or second rate for the PSP. Even has a couple very like small gameplay changes. Like there's a whole extra tire type that isn't on the 360 PS3 version. And different tracks as well, same car list, but it's really good. And yeah, it's definitely this was one I went back to try and see, and I was like, this is good, but it's more of a top 10 than the top 5 for me.
Yeah.
It's a good summary. I think like one of the most impressive things about the PSP game, I'm curious about your guys' thoughts if you go back and play it after this. The Masters class cars in the PSP game feel really similar to the Saturn Sega Rally for me. I think the looseness of driving those feels kind of very similar, but I've always felt as if driving the Masters cars in that game is actually slightly better than the PS3 game. I enjoy driving them in the PS3 game, but it sort of kind of feels as if you're in the PS3 game, the car's trying to control you a lot of the time. Like it's
they're
super
tough,
fast in Masters class,
hard,
which is fantastic. But I think like the Masters class cars in the PSP one handle real nice. I love driving the Celica especially. Yeah, worth considering.
Man,
I was finding the Celica very squirrely trying to control that around here last night, going through a bunch of tracks in here.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Both Sega Rally Revos are spectacular, to be honest, and we've waxed lyrical about that before. Obviously, Paul, in your episode, we first had you on and stuff.
Go back and listen to the first episode we did with Paul.
Yeah, I mean, coming to many video essays near you on YouTube, probably the rally game you wish you played. You should have played this rally game.
You do see it pop up now and again, Sega Rally Revo. Very like in those sort of videos, it comes up going.
Yeah, it should do. It's absolutely banging. So
it's great.
Okay. Well, any other comments about Revo or like...
Still got that terrain deformation. Sort of.
They
but
carried
it
that
is
through. It's not like it's more of just a texture because
more
it's
texture swap.
It's moving maps around on the surface.
But it works. Like it does affect the grip, and so it functionally does the same thing that it does on the console version. Yeah.
I love that.
It's not as overtly impressive as it is on 360 or whatever, but like the fact that it's happening at all on the PSP is really cool. It's very exciting.
Still think the Arctic surface is the most impressive on the PS3 ones because it has that like slushy mid zone before you get through. Oh, so cool.
That's ingenious. Like whoever it was that had the idea for that, like it's gonna be the inverse. It's like the smartest person ever. Was it you, Paul?
No, I was.
No,
it was. I didn't join the team when the game was. I joined like mid dev, so that was all they decided. I'm not sure who that was actually, but yeah, it was cool. It was a really neat idea.
Well, thank you for personally doing that.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next game, as we're getting through these nicely. Colin McRae, 2005 plus.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was me. Obviously, mainly put that on the list because that was another game that I worked on, and it's the full game of the 2005 game. Again, doesn't quite do it justice because the frame rate's a little iffy at times. On an overclocked PSP, it's much better. But it was just, for me, it was like, this is a game, this is like the last McRae before I went to Dirt.
Yes.
And it's the whole game. It's not like a cut down version of the game. It's the same game you played on PS2 or Xbox or PC. So for me, I had to have it on there just as I worked on this game. It was really cool, and a little bit of history there, and that's kind of all I've got to say about it. And you guys have all played McRae in different forms and stuff, and it's like, I'm playing it again recently. It's like, this is really cool. Really good game. It's got Nicky Garris doing the co-driver and all the tracks and stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's really cool.
So
good times,
this game is really good, and it's really like impressive. Again, we've been talking about like getting the whole experience on the PSP. It totally is. What broke my heart when I played it, because I played it a lot recently, is that there is a bug. I don't think it's a bug. It's some kind of very odd design choice with the handling, because there's like that tight steer button.
Oh yeah, I wish you talked about on the Discord.
We had talked about it, and for whatever reason, like I think it was actually present on the console versions too, but you didn't have to use it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know it was there. I never used. I had 2005 on the original Xbox, and it wasn't a problem. But on the PSP, if you try to steer with the analog stick and you don't press that button, you lose a ton of speed when you turn. This was an issue I was having, and then I found that if I used the D-pad, I was able to turn effectively, but then I'm using the D-pad, and you would really prefer to use a stick for Colin McRae. So, that kind of really made me sad. But if someone could come out with a mod that fixed that, then this game is on my list, 100%. Yeah.
Get Silent on it to modify it. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was it's one of the many PAL exclusive racing games that I purchased over the last 95 years. That we've been studying up for this episode. Let's say.
Did that come out in the US? The PSP one?
No, or at least I don't think so.
Not released here. Toka was.
I found a bunch of
but not
different.
Colin.
Well, one Toka was.
Yep.
We'll get to that too. A lot of these were I imported it and then spent like an evening or two with it, but it's now been long enough that I don't remember any of my specific or more nuanced thoughts. So I'll just leave them out. Other than just I bought it. I don't know. I'll play it again. I know I will, but
yeah, it's a great rally game. One of the great rally games.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Was there an Evolution developed WRC
Yes.
game?
Well, no. Okay, sort of. It was Traveler's Tales, and I went back.
Was a weird caveat.
That was released in the US. Namco published it. It was very strange, and I think that's the first game I ever recall playing with the Bandai Namco logo. I was like, what happened to Namco?
Yeah, that merger was 05.
Yeah. So that game, I enjoyed it a lot when I was a kid, especially it had the full WRC license, but playing it now, the handling is really tough. It is like the twitchiest game in terms of steering on the PSP. And definitely Colin McRae is the 2005 Plus is just more impressive in terms of content and just pretty much everything. But yeah.
We only brought up that one because this is like the ultimate standard rally game, I would say.
Yeah.
PSP.
You're talking about two legendary demo scene studios known for extreme technical prowess and also making rally games. I don't know, that's
Yeah, I mean the Evolution Studios games on PS2 are fantastic. I think they got the.
Well, I meant Traveler's Tales, but yeah.
Well, yeah, Traveler's Tales also has a storied history, but like
Yeah.
no, the WRC.
I'm surprised it wasn't an Amiga port.
The WRC games on the PSP or on the PS2 are great. The first one's kind of rough, but they like by the time they got to like 3 and 4, they were just executing at such a high level. But yeah, it's just unfortunately I think it's a control issues, and it's just less like I remember us talking about this on the Colin McRae episode that we did. You were on, Paul, where it's just like you guys, Codemasters, kind of took more of like a kind of detailed, almost like on the stage, like sort of focus, whereas like Evolution Studios was more about those big draw distances and pulling the camera out and these huge cliff sides. You could see a lot further, but to me, like at least in the PSP version, just like the level of just like every corner like really feeling like its own moment, and just like the physics and how you approach it just didn't come through as much. So yeah.
Interesting. Today I learned there were 4 other PS2 WRC games that didn't come out here.
Yeah, and Rally Evolved, which is a whole other beast. Sorry to hijack the conversation about Colin McRae with those games.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one then. Midnight Club 3.
Cool game.
That's me. I love me some Midnight Club 3. It is better than almost every open world Need for Speed. Your Underground's way better than Underground. Yeah, I adore this game, and the PSP version is it's Midnight Club 3 on the PSP. And fortunately, if you played it on the UMD back in the day, you had to
still
sit
loading
through,
it now.
think like 3 minutes of loading.
You say back in the day? What do you mean back in the day? I mean earlier this week?
Okay, well, some of us that don't still have PSPs just have it on our SD cards that are in a Vita game cartridge, and then you don't have loading problems. So it's great. I highly recommend it. And yeah, the conversation gets really interesting because Bren's already revealed the next game, and this is a very interesting duo.
Pairing,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I flip-flop on both of these for a long time too.
I went for LA Remix because it's so strange.
It's a weird game.
It's like that game somebody tells you about and you're going, you don't quite believe it exists because it sounds really strange, just like content wise. I love LA Remix because I love LA on the PS3 and such, but LA Remix just feels like its own beast entirely, I would say. I prefer LA Remix to 3, but I think they're both good options.
Yeah. So the really interesting thing about these two games is 3 is just a port of 3 on the console. It has all the same content. The only thing is if you really like the when they came out with Dub Remix for the, not to be confused with what Brent just said, but for the consoles, that those had an extra city, they had extra cars. So the PSP version didn't get a remix release. LA Remix on the PSP, however, is really interesting because what they did was, because LA was like, there was no way you were ever getting LA onto a PSP. So the approach that Rockstar took with this was to port the cities from 2, although not all of them.
Yeah.
And then like basically, they kept the cars from LA on the consoles. And then is there something else I'm forgetting, or is that basically... Oh, and it all runs on the 3 engine. That's what it is. So, like, if you play LA Remix after playing 3 on the PSP, they feel almost exactly the same. It's really just a difference in terms of the cars you're driving and the cities that you're at. And so it's really more of a flavor thing. But, yeah, just a very, very odd game.
Yeah. And it's just, like... the amount of content in LA Remix because of all those different like kind of cities and stuff as well. We've talked quite a lot about these PSP games having like shit tons of content. I think like LA Remix's approach to just being like a greatest hits sort of version of 2 is interesting enough to deserve a slot on the list.
Yeah, I think for me it really comes down to, I think Midnight Club 3 is like, it's one of my favorite open world racing games ever, favorite racing games ever. I think I just like that games. I like the cities more, and I really prefer the car list. The car list in 3 is good, and the car list in LA is wherever platform you play it on is to me the weakest thing about it. It just has like nothing. I think it's like you basically jump from like, you're in like a Sylvia or like an R34, and then there's like a Murcielago, and then that's it. Like I don't know, it's really lacking in that category, but otherwise it's a good game. And it's still, God, if you go and you buy LA on the 360, which is still for sale, you can download off the
also
Xbox store.
backwards compatible.
Backwards compatible too, yeah. That game, it is so ahead of its time. It's gorgeous. Like if you increase the resolution, you could convince me that was a modern release. It's just a stunning game. Yeah.
It takes some adjustment time, I think, to get used to the new like dynamic camera thing, but you can
Yes.
also turn that off if you want. But yeah, that game's super impressive. I only played that for the first time on Series X a couple years ago, and I had a blast with it. But also part of that might be because I have a lot of fun with most racing games, because stuff like a Sylvia or an R34 is like the ceiling of what I want to be driving anyway. So.
Yeah.
You don't have bigger dreams.
Like, oh, you got a
Andrew.
180 SX? Let's go!
Nothing else. That's it for you.
Yeah.
You live your life a quarter mile at the time. That's it.
Yeah, you know me.
Midnight Club LA kind of felt like Rockstar at their most iconic in a way, like in terms of like, you knew when a game felt like a Rockstar game. I feel like they've sort of lost their way a little bit recently. Personally,
Because they don't release games. They just update the same one forever. They don't make new games.
So I feel like LA feels the least like a Rockstar game to me, just because it drives so much differently than.
Yeah, that's true.
It almost. I almost joked that it feels closer to like the horses in Red Dead 2, and then I remember the horse drift button, and I was like,
Yeah.
actually, that might be accurate.
Yeah, that might actually.
Completely different studio from a different side of the planet, but
Yeah.
Physics are
No,
odd
it's
in that one
horse
for
drifting.
sure. Yeah.
incredible. But yeah, I didn't end up picking either of these necessarily, but I would be ecstatic to find them on the Memory Stick Pro Duo on a desert island.
Not to distract the topic too much, but I just randomly remembered the other day when Midnight Club 2 reappeared on Steam for like.
Yes, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah,
for like 15
I
minutes.
grabbed it. Oh,
Yeah,
God,
same.
Midnight Club 2 is so
I
good.
was so mad I missed that, dude.
What a
insane.
great game it is.
Thank you, whatever caused that.
So one game left.
What will it be?
Oh, God.
What will it be?
Got an idea.
GTI
Yeah.
Club!
'Cause it is.
Super Mini Fista!
So this is the one, this was me, and this was the one that kicked Wipeout Pure off my list, because I was like, do I really, like, GTI Club, it's cool, it's charming, but is it really, like, it's kind of almost like a kart racer, like, do I really want this on my list? And then I booted up Super Mini Festa again, which we had a whole episode about GTI Club a while back, and in that episode, I am gushing about how amazing this game is, and I had forgotten over a couple of years. And I started playing again. I'm like, God damn it, this game is the most addicting game on the PSP. It's just, I mean, at least in terms of what's on my list, it's so good. Konami developed, Genki assisted with the Wii version, but I don't think they were on this one. So this is a very different game. If you only played GTI Club Plus on the PS3,
So
that was same map but developed by Sumo, and totally different feel. I mean that's a great game. Sumo, obviously, we've already talked about them. Fantastic studio, but I prefer Super Mini Festa just because it has that. If you look at like a game like the original GTI Club in the arcade or Rage Racer, it has that like 32-bit mid-90s like really grainy, dithered European just crustiness to it. I don't know.
The textures are JPEGs.
Everything's like
down to like 64 pixels or whatever.
Yeah, just like a nearest neighbor scale JPEG bitmap, whatever. And it just strikes the perfect feeling. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The physics are great. The course design is just unbelievably good. I mean, it's basically like you have like 6, quote unquote city maps. They're not really open world, but they're kind of that, sort of like linear in the sense that they're pushing you in a direction, but there are many different paths you can take. And honestly, like some of them are detrimental to your progress. So you really have to learn the map and what you're dealing with. The only problem with this game is that when you get to the final, because I think there's like 3 or 4 difficulty levels, and when you get to the final group of races, the final difficulty, the game is, you just have to stop playing. Like you have to give up, because it becomes ungodly hard after being really easy. Like the difficulty curve is basically like a vertical line at that point.
Sounds like a skill issue.
But I will say that in terms of replayability on a desert island, it's wonderful because it has so many different strange game modes. There's bomb tag, which unfortunately, if you're playing the CPU, it's not as much fun as playing their human. But you do have bomb tag. You have car soccer, which is enjoyable.
It's good fun.
Different kind of, there's like a mode where you're trying to collect like coins, and there's just all different sorts of weird different styles of play in that game, and it's really, really good. I recommend everybody checks out Super Mini Festa. I didn't think I'd be the only person with it on their list, though. I thought Paul would have it.
It was very close to me.
Yeah,
it was. I played the PS3 one more. Obviously, it's a slightly different game, but way more because that was amazing when that came out. Because I remember playing it in the arcade with the handbrake and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's out on PS3 now. This is cool. And this one came out on the Wii as well, right? But I didn't play either that much until really we started talking about this, and it was close. It was a really cool game.
Yeah. One of those like kind of later PSP releases. I mean, not super late, I guess. I think it was like 2009 or something. And like, so it was kind of I don't think it got a physical release in this country,
no, it was
too.
digital only.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. It's just there wasn't a lot of presence. I remember when I saw that it came out.
I don't think it got a physical release anywhere, did it?
Maybe not. But when I saw they came out on the PSN, I was like, I think I just assumed it was a game I had already played on the PS3, so I didn't really think about it. But
yeah,
I mean, there's so much more content here. Even like the car selection is just sweet. You have like the best like collection of like super minis from, you know, the 80s through the 90s, 2000s. So yeah, can't say enough good things about Super Mini Festa.
So early in the pandemic, I found my second PS3, my secondary PS3 Slim that I found at a thrift store for like $4 or something, and took that home and immediately yanked the hard drive out and stuck a big stupid SSD in there or whatever, and jailbroke it. And one of the first things that I found to put on there was Super Mini Festa, because I heard you guys talking about it before on the show, and it was not officially available in any capacity by that point. So I found it in a dusty corner of the internet and played a whole bunch of it, had a blast, and then forgot about it. And then Adam, you started talking about it for this episode as well, and I couldn't find a physical copy of the PSP release because I don't believe there is one. But in my search, I did find a Wii copy, so I got that, and had a tremendous time with that game, and then proceeded to forget again about it being on PSP, and then just forgot to play it.
Does the Wii one have any? I mean, is it like motion steering and stuff, or?
I don't know. Who gives a shit? Plug a classic controller in that thing like an adult.
I'm just wondering, man. It's just a question.
No, I don't. I don't know. I just. I have a Wii remote that I leave in a little like 3D printed thing permanently like mounted underneath a classic controller.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think what happened is I played Sky Crawlers, which is that the Wii's singular Ace Combat game, one time with motion controls, and I was like, this is disastrous. Then I plugged a classic controller in, and that works fine as long as you have it plugged in before you boot the game up. So I just left it in that little harness thing, and it's now been there for years. So anytime I'm playing a Wii game that I would rather use sticks and buttons for, which is as many of them as I can.
Right.
That's what I do. I don't know.
I just thought of a wonderful cursed idea for a show, which is Wii racing games.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson's Anything with an Engine, baby. Let's go.
Basically, for me, starts and ends with Excite Truck, which is
rules,
phenomenal, and then there's nothing else, and then it's over. It's over. There's GT Pro Series.
Excite Bots
GT Cube.
No.
But, yeah.
Excitebots, I should play that.
Excitebots
I've had it forever. It seems cool. It seems great.
Weird.
It seems wild. I would love to check that out. Keep forgetting.
That's one of
And
those
Super
games.
Mini Festa, as we've been
Yeah,
discussing.
Super Mini Festa. So
So there's a Chorokyu on there.
yeah,
Uh,
not very good.
Which of the 17 names did that one have in this country?
Penny Racer's Party, I think
Yeah,
is what that
Penny
got over
Racer's
here.
Party. It's got licensed cars though.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. You've got was the fake Ridge Racer in that Go Vacation
Yes.
mini game. We've
Yeah.
got we're all right. We're burning pottery.
The last thing I was going to say was, I think I've said it before, but Bomb Tag Online and GTI Club Plus was like a revelation on the PlayStation
Oh, that
3
sounds
version
great.
because you could use your PlayStation Eye or iToy
Camera.
to like
That's right.
take photos
Oh, no.
that would basically show up on people's screens whenever you passed the bomb or got bombed or like at the start of the event and that sort of thing. And yeah,
That's so
they
good.
Yeah,
were
like in
fun to
Burnout
be
Paradise,
around with
right?
that.
Same thing. with the
Yeah,
pictures.
Burnout Paradise did it as well.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, that's our list, and guys,
Wow.
there's always a happy ending to every story. So we've been playing our 5 games for 2 years, and we've been having a great time. Then we realised that there isn't just 5 games on this list. Every game on this list was here the whole time. Would you believe it? What you had to do was hit down on a D-pad 3 times and they all appeared. So that kept us busy for
Wow.
another few years. Every single game on this list, right here. Go us.
Beautiful. We are still trapped on an island though, and there's no
Yeah, that's an issue.
infinite games doesn't last as long as not having food or water. So
I think
Good luck.
there's an infinite vending machine as well. But I need to go back and check.
oh, okay, never mind. We're good. We're good.
So the last thing I actually wanted to cover on this, Adam, before we go out and talk, like maybe just kind of concluding stuff, we did poll the community for this as well. So
Dude, I gotta see this.
I
I need to know.
the way we're going to treat this is that community is an individual. Effectively. The homogenous
It's one.
Discord blob have chosen their 5 games. The 5 that they chose were GTPSP with 16 votes, Ridge Racer 2 with 15 votes, Outrun 2006 with 13 votes, Burnout Legends with 11 votes.
Yeah,
which
I'm
wasn't even in our
amazed.
fucking list.
That's not
Nobody
even the right
had
Burnout game to
Legends.
pick for PSP.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
And the Test Drive Unlimited with 10. Like,
Yes, yeah.
wow.
I expected that to show up today, actually.
I think a few of these are
For
worth
sure.
quickly talking about. Burnout Legends,
Yeah.
good game. It's just got a level of jank that, again, to go from like Burnout 3 or Revenge to this, it's like they were really pushing up against it with the PSP, I think. So that kind of
It's also one of the worst licensed soundtracks I've ever heard.
it's just a Revenge license soundtrack, I think.
Is it
Yeah.
really? Did I block out?
Yeah. There's like
I don't love Revenge.
it's funny though because you play it, and it's like there's lots of like not this isn't the reason to not like hate the game or anything, right? But it's just like I just remember like polygon seams, like when you play like the original Ridge
Yeah.
Racer and you can like see through corners of a building. Like Burnout Legends is that to me. Still obviously much better than the DS port, as Brent has talked about on this show.
Gosh.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But it's not bad for Burnout on a on the portable. And Test Drive Unlimited is very impressive as well. It's a full game. I just think
Yeah.
that the frame rate's
Okay,
not
Test Drive, so.
great, and I just would prefer to play that game on a 360. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, although, as Lindemann pointed out recently, the PS2 port is also weirdly impressive for Test Drive Unlimited and worth checking out.
PS2
It's not,
port.
technically amazing, but the PS2 port of Test Drive Unlimited is kind of neat.
PS2 port was developed by Melbourne House. It handles a fuck ton better than the 360 version. That's for sure. But yeah, so it definitely has that going for it. I just it's kind of on PS2 and PSP. It's fantastic port that they did for those consoles, but it just feels like more dreary, and I think that's just by virtue of the fact that they put the entire fucking island on those systems, and you're just never going to get this. It was already sparse on 360, and you're just never going to get the same level of detail, even then, that you're going to get on the PS2 or the PSP, so.
And buddy, when I think of Oahu, the first word that comes to mind is dreary.
Exactly. It's very they picked the wrong shade of green. I don't know how else to describe it.
I haven't been there since the 90s. I couldn't tell you what it looks like now.
At least you have been there.
Presumably gray and rainy all the time. That's white.
I got to play that F1 game, though, on the PSP.
Yeah, I was going to say, out of all the other options, they were all kind of fairly what you would expect, but Formula 1 06 getting 5 votes was the only other thing I was thinking was a bit of a surprise, because I've never played that, so...
Was 06 a PAL exclusive, maybe?
It didn't come out here. They didn't come out with any... Sony didn't release any F1 games between, like, I want to say, like, 2003 or something, and Championship Edition on the PS3. So,
Right.
We missed a lot.
I can quickly run down my stack of Doom here. If the people at home want to know what I put myself through, so that we, make sure all our bases are covered. I'll try not to eat up another hour and a half going through this, but just since the snowboard episode, here is everything in front of me that I've fired up. Not counting Long Gun Midnight, which I don't have a physical copy of, but I did play that as well. Anyway, yeah, spent some time with Burnout Dominator. If you like Legends, I think this is a much better Burnout experience on the PSP. Played a bunch of Crazy Taxi Fair Wars, which again,
just missed out my list actually.
Like we've talked about before, I hate The Offspring, but if I'm playing Crazy Taxi, I better be listening to The Offspring, or else what are you doing? Come on. It has a lot of the same performance issues that like the Dreamcast one does originally as well. So it's just whatever. Who cares? It's fine. It's fine. It's Crazy Taxi. You'll be alright. I spent some more time with his EA Replay collection just for the Road Rash trilogy on there, which recommend also avoiding at all costs that version of the Mega Drive Road Rash trilogy, because dear Lord, it's bad. All right, Formula 1 2009, which I did play. I don't know.
Codemaster's first F1 game.
Is it really?
Was only on the PSP and the Wii, and then 2010 came out on everything else. Yeah.
Weird.
All right. Yeah, I have no idea what the breakup is here, because there's a big old Sumo Digital logo on the back of it. But
okay. Well, Codemasters had the license,
published
but
they published it possibly at that point. I can't. Yeah, not developed it.
Yeah.
Come on, Paul. It's a walking encyclopedia of useless
like
knowledge.
500 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a big old GameStop exclusives thing on the front of the box. I don't know, man. Let's see. I spent some time with Gangs of London, which because I don't have Driver 76, and when you can't get Driver 76, the next worst thing is Gangs of London, which is fine, whatever. There is driving in there enough that it felt worth mentioning, but it's not a racing game. Juiced Eliminator. Who cares?
That game's terrible.
Juiced 2.
I had I think 2. Oh god, what a horrible game.
2 is significantly less bad than 1, I will say. Don't play either of them, but they're here. Or at least not the PSP ports of them. I don't remember anything about the console ones.
Actually, I think I had 1, but yeah, continue.
It don't matter. None of this matter. Yes, Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition was in here, as well as LA Remix, as we've talked about. Now we're going to go through a brick of darkness. Shout out to the homie Matthew Martinson for handling a bunch of the audio work on these games. But we got Need for Speed's Underground Rivals. We got a Most Wanted 510. We got a Carbon Owned the City, which this one's okay. For one of listen, compared to the previous two, we're grading on a scale here. Need for Speed Undercover. Don't touch that one in any of its forms. We got Pro Street. We got Shift. These are good.
I like Pro Street.
I am most curious. I am most curious about the Shift and Pro Street ports because those are obviously like not developed in house by EA on any platform, like very different systems. So. Well, actually, Pro Street was, but not Shift.
Shift's PSP port was Bright Light, which I would have to look that up.
So that would have been EA, but on consoles it was infamously Slightly Mad Studios. Yeah.
I like Shift and Shift 2 quite a bit. Otherwise, and then we talked about Outrun quite a bit. We talked about the Pursuit Forces a little bit.
I need to play that game. I know everyone loves it. I've never played it before.
They're very strange. I can't help but wish that there was I would love to see Taito's version of this, or have the Time Crisis team make a Pursuit Force or something. It's Pursuit Force is a game that dares to ask, what if one man was both lucky and wild? and it kind of tries to smash both of those roles into one experience. And as like a goofy arcadey thing, I think it's really fun and great. It's just also like it's so close to the weirder, jankier, like Virtua Cop version of this that lives in my head that I wish existed.
Is that the
just tonally?
Is that the club?
No. The club is a very different aesthetic.
I just wanted to just bring up the club. Continue.
I just mentioned the club. Yeah, you're contractually obligated. Yes, exactly. All right, so as Adam alluded to earlier, we did get Race Driver 2006
with Dodge Chargers on the cover.
Yeah, just I'm not sure what to make of the way that this thing came out here. I don't. This was one of these games that I bought and spent an evening with, and I could not tell you what I thought about it.
Frame rate's lacking, obviously, but otherwise it's all of Race Driver 2 on the PSP, so pretty solid game.
Sweet. Right on. Race Driver 2 is a good-ass video game. And then, just launch Ridge Racers 1, or Ridge Racer, the US version here.
Okay.
I played a bunch of Rush.
Oh.
Which is, I guess it was LA Rush, but it's was the... I think was it LA Rush in Europe, I believe? I think they just called it Rush here.
Unless it's a different game.
Yeah. Because it is LA Rush. They just
I'm pretty sure we had LA Rush here, but I feel like on the PSP they did something different.
I think it was just Rush on PSP.
So
it is. I don't know. It's.
That makes no sense.
It's very bad. It's
a Midway game, very bad. You don't say.
Never.
How dare you? And then we mentioned the PSP port of Split Second a little bit earlier. Yeah. Totally worth having, checking out. It's not as impressive maybe as a direct console conversion as some of the other games that we talked about, but it is Split Second on a PSP, and it's more or less exactly what you probably picture in your head. Speaking of console conversions to the handheld, now Adam, as the American portion of Time Extend, you and I are well versed in the art of dumping firearms out of windows of vehicles, right? Like that's just something that we do
every day.
In the States,
I wake up.
Is he going to pull Miami Vice out?
I get in my felony 1199 Dodge Ram pickup and I start throwing firearms out my car.
Yeah, just tossing them out the window. I, for one, love to drive to work, just firing randomly, just SMGs all over the place. Anyway, 187 Ride or Die is a video game that happens. I was shocked to learn that got a PAL-only PSP conversion called Street Riders.
Mm-hmm. What?
Sounds like the title of a game.
Yeah, that's about what I said.
Weird.
I mean, it's fine. It's not quite a full auto or whatever, but it's a racing game where you're, hanging an SMG out the window with one arm. Whatever. It's fine. It exists. It's there. I mostly just think it's really funny that exists, that it is not called 187 Ride or Die, and that it was PAL exclusive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just that combination of things makes that game very, very funny to me. Also, I think I got it for literally $1 shipped across the pond.
Wow, that was good.
So not too hard to come by. Test Drive Unlimited we dealt with. All right, back into PAL exclusives again briefly. We got Toka 3.
Yeah.
Race Driver 3 Challenge.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's as we were discussing in the Discord just yesterday, it's some content from 3, but it's in like the engine from 2006, and even the HUD's the same, and you don't have the whole career, so.
Okay.
But it's like a totally different career. Whereas like Race Driver 2006 is literally the console games. This actually is more of like an LA remix thing where it's just picking and pulling a bunch of
Yeah, but I mean, hey, Toka Race Driver series. Sure. Can't be mad at that at all. Last 3 here in my hands are, well, I guess 2 really. One of them is Pipo Saru Racing. The Saru Getchu.
Is that
the Ape Escape kart racer?
Escape. Wow.
Yes. It's got some ideas. It's kind of a, I don't know, would that be like an Extreme G thing where like your limbs have the wheels and then you kind of like pull them in and to go faster and then out to slow down and corner? The whole game is just really, really slow though, and it's not particularly inspired. It definitely feels its budget. It's got some of that like chocobo racing heat on it a little bit, although without the square silliness. It's just it does not have the charm of Ape Escape, really, and it's not a great kart racer, but it exists. It does technically exist, and I can't take that away from them. And then, yeah, your Japanese copy of Ridge Racers 1 that I threw in here. And then last, and almost assuredly least, Simple 2500 Volume 9 Portable, or as I like to call it, Kuso Taxi.
Kuso Taxi.
It's a simple version of Crazy Taxi, and it sucks, and it's delightful. It's great. I believe one friend of the show, Casey Calhoun, did a video on this at some point. There's a PS2 version as well in the Simple 2000 series, but I don't know. Something about there being a PSP port is funnier to me. So
Half expected to see Mod Nation Racers in that.
I only have that on Vita, apparently.
Yeah,
PSP
I
version
only played the PS3
very strange. It's not very good.
I've never touched
But
it.
it's still that whole PSP thing where it's like we're putting the whole fucking game in there, which is like crazy for a game like that to have a track creator, full livery mod creation.
Wow, that's cool.
The load times from the PS3 game, which I'm sure everybody's super happy about returning. But the driving physics are super poor, and the PSP
Well, they were never
one,
good. Yeah.
No, they were never good.
Even
but
on the
see the
PS3
way-
one, they weren't great.
Mod Nation also had that issue where it was like if you were landing from an aerial or something, it felt like the cart would kind of move itself almost. Like you'd have that weird readjustment. The PSP game runs at a lower frame rate, which seems to like exacerbate that a lot more. So like it just never really quite feels like you're in full control. But the fact that it exists at all is fairly impressive. The Vita one's pretty good, I would say, but the PSP one, it's worth experiencing because it's just so strange that they actually managed to put it on there. And I think it was United Front that still developed it for PSP as well. Maybe I'm off on that, and it was probably Sumo, but I think that I think it was United Front.
When in doubt.
Yeah, when in doubt, Sumo, exactly.
The general rule of PSP games is if it's a port of something on a console and you don't know who made it and it's good, it's usually Sumo. If it's bad, I can't help you there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, it was United Front Games in San Diego studio, so it was kept in house from Sony. Exclusive.
Interesting. I have never played a Mod Nation racer. Yeah, I have a Vita copy. I think this whole time I thought it was a Media Molecule joint.
They made
For
Little
whatever
Big
reason.
Planet
I don't know
Car.
why I thought that.
That was on PSP as well, actually. Wasn't it? I'm gonna check.
Well, it was definitely a part of their whole like play, create, share era of
It was.
PlayStation, and I
No, it was just
completely
PS3.
forgot there was a Vita version of Mod Nation Racers. I wonder how that one is.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
I didn't bring that upstairs with me. I'm sorry. I've let you down.
It's okay. This did cause me your list. Andrew did cause me to look up and see if there was a runabout on the PSP, and there was not.
Sad.
At least not that I can find.
Oh well.
Well.
On that note.
Yeah.
So that's the show.
Yes, that is
That's good.
that's a lot of racing games on the PSP. It was great.
Hell of a lot.
What a library, man.
What a library. I would say let us know in the Discord what you would have put on your list, but people have already done that. So if you want to see more specifically, there was somebody in there who had like Asphalt Urban GT. There's some wild. There's some
Yeah.
some.
PSP port.
Yeah, that was on everything.
Wow. Okay.
That was the first game I had for my DS Lite. Was
Nice.
whatever Asphalt, like the second one. But anyway, share your picks if you haven't already on the Discord, of course.
Unless the picks are asphalt.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody as well for immediately jumping to go for the technicality of playing PlayStation 1 games. Like, guys,
Yeah.
Yes.
when we put out a challenge like that, you should know
Oh my
what
God.
the conditions are. Like, I'm sorry, I had to call it out. I just was like, I knew that was going to happen. Why does this shit always happen?
You could put it on the memory
I've
stick.
got to scroll up because I swear to God, someone listed only F1. Yeah. Someone listed only PS1 games.
Yeah.
Actually, only PS1 games and then WRC on the PSP. That was it. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I was really excited for a second. I thought you were going to say only F1 games. I was like, are there a bunch more PSP F1 games I didn't know about? But I don't know. We'll never know. There's no way to know. Shout out to the PSP for having the exact correct number of analog sticks to make a bunch of racing games playable, I guess. or the minimum amount of analog sticks, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get at this is the one genre that like you can kind of get away with that, okay?
But you don't want to use a thumb strap on the touchscreen?
No, I do not. Listen, I've got capital T thoughts on Metroid Prime Hunters if you want to go there, but that's for a different day.
That's for a Metroid Prime episode. When we did the snowboarding one,
Please don't make me do a DS games episode. I
when
can't.
we did the running and then the snowboarding, there was immediately someone who was like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
you guys okay
It
over
was
there?
actually one of like the earliest discussions we had. Adam was like this idea where free practice was going to be like a general subject, and we were going to do the Evangelion episode. I always remember us talking about the potential to look at that when I was reviewing it. It'd be interesting to think about those sorts of variety episodes where we talk about totally
Things that have nothing to
stuff.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
I did have a moment where I was going through here. I think Pursuit Force was the thing that had me thinking like, okay, what does and does not count for this thought experiment?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously Pursuit Force is not what Brendan is talking about when he said a memory stick full of 5 racing games or whatever. Nor is Gangs of London or Driver 76, etc. But when I was deciding what to add to this horrifying stack here, I was thinking about having that conversation with myself of like, okay, what qualifies as like driving? And again, like, what are we gonna put in here? Like, I don't have either of the 2 GTA Stories games on here. I have the PS2 ports, but I hate those games. It's fine. So I didn't think about that, but I was like, do I put like, what is driving? Do I put spaceships in here? Like, if Wipeout counts, does like Star Wars Battlefront count? Like, do we put Ace Combat or like Afterburner in here? Like, what? No.
The Afterburner game on PSP.
I had to think.
Yeah, I
It
was thinking
is,
about that.
but are you driving?
Yeah, you're flying.
Yeah, see, you have that.
I would have allowed it, although Brent really organized everything, so it's really up to him.
Yeah, I'll love it.
If Brent had,
I think anything
allowed it,
goes for
I
us.
would've
I
been
think
upset.
whatever you want. I mean, if we're already on, we're recording, and then like you throw out like freaking Star Wars Battlefront, who am I to stop you, right?
Yeah.
It's on record.
Pepsi Man.
The answer is just a good friend, Adam. A good friend would stop me. Save me from myself.
I estimate it's like 3 a.m. Over in UK
Probably.
land, so we should
10
probably
to
wrap
12.
this one up.
Yeah.
10 to 12, so good time to.
Oh
All
gosh,
right.
yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.